Community organizing seeks to identify and build on the assets of the community, all right? And one of the things that I think we miss is that we don't realize how many assets we have in the community, human and just, the land, buildings, institutions in our community. All of those are great assets. One of the things about organizing is that they say that, some people walk by vacant lots and they see hopelessness and despair. An organizer like Dr. Tom looks at a vacant lot and he sees opportunity for new housing, all right, new development, new businesses, new grocery stores. And so the resources are there, and many times because we're looking through the wrong lenses, we're unable to identify the resources that we have. All right? We organize so that we can develop a common agenda. My hope is this afternoon when we talk and we do a little case studies, we'll go through that process of building a common agenda with 50 people in a room, all of them having 50 different ideas. How do you build a common agenda on what ought to happen in the neighborhood? Well, one thing is for sure, that if you don't organize, you'll never do it. You'll have 50 different groups, and even if all 50 of them are successful, that whole piece of the pie is so small until it's nowhere near the impact that could be made if all of them were together pushing the same idea. And so we come together, we organize so that we can build a common agenda and move from one issue to the next and make it sustainable. I'm going to close, I think, by sharing with you a couple of the stories that we've had with Developing Communities Project. And I don't know if you've heard of Developing Communities Project in Chicago, but it is the organization that hired Barack Obama out of college and paid him $10,000 to be a community organizer. Somebody said, I've been listening to some things, they said they gave him, $12,000, and then they gave him a bonus. No, they paid him $10,000 and gave him $2,000 to buy a car because his shoes were already running over. All right. When he came to my neighborhood, he was walking. He was walking, and my church sits 2 blocks off the nearest bus route. All right, so he was walking through the community. And so for $10,000, he began organizing pastors, began with what was a cloistered Catholic organization that sat in the middle of an African-American community, and he said, we're not going to survive or get anything done if we don't branch out and reach out to everybody in the community. So he brought in Methodists, he brought in Pentecostals, he brought in Baptists, he brought in African-Americans, he brought in Hispanics, and we developed a multicultural, multi-ethnic organization that went across. We have probably one of the largest demographics in terms of a community organization in the city of Chicago. And through that, we began organizing around issues. We finally did get that jobs training facility done in the heart of our neighborhood. We ran into another issue, just to show you how common when you work together. When we got the jobs training piece done, someone out in the neighborhood that's called Altgeld Gardens in Chicago, and Altgeld Gardens is a community that's 99% African American. It's the farthest southern community in the city of Chicago, and it is the most isolated community in Chicago, if not in the state of Illinois. It is cut off on the east by both Lake Michigan and we call it the Bishop Ford I-94 Expressway. It's cut off on the north by the Calumet-Sag River. It's cut off on the west by a series of railroad tracks and it's cut off on the south by the city limits. So it's isolated. It has no transportation. You can't get to it. They just built a laundromat in Altgeld Gardens about 2 years ago because the projects there at Altgeld Gardens, they would not let them put washing machines in the projects. And they had no laundromat. We had to organize just to get a laundromat so that people could wash their clothes. They had to leave their homes with bags and then walk for blocks to catch a bus to find a laundromat in the city. Every day, every day. And so just getting jobs. Well, we found out that when they found out that we were successful with that, they invited us to come out to Altgeld Gardens to talk to them about jobs creation. When we got out there, we walked in and we saw in the offices, there were people walking through the offices in these hazmat suits. And so we asked the person in the office, what are you doing? You know, and he said, well, this building has asbestos in it. And so the Chicago Housing Authority has sent us in to clean the asbestos out of the offices. And we said, well, if asbestos is in the offices, it's probably a good probability that there's asbestos in all of the project apartments. They said, yeah, they're all built the same, you know, but we only have funding to get it out of the office. Now you've got hundreds of people living isolated communities. They can't go anywhere, and their own homes are killing them. And so we lobbied, and we got the information about the asbestos and the Chicago Housing Authority budget. We called them all in, and they said, well, we don't have enough money to fix the plumbing and to get rid of asbestos. I said, well, you're getting rid of it. And so we ended up marching and going down to City Hall, the CHA meetings, bringing in all the community residents until the Chicago Housing Authority came up with the money miraculously to clean the asbestos out of all of the apartments. Now, that was one victory, but we knew it was going to happen. And so because we were having community meetings, and it began with economic development and jobs creation, we said, well, they're going to move asbestos out of these houses. Somebody got to do it. We need some people to be trained in asbestos removal. So we partnered with the community college, which was about 6 blocks away. And they said, yes, we'd be glad to put a class in asbestos removal and certify. We got the residents who lived in those apartments into the school, got them trained in asbestos removal. They got paid to clean up their own houses. All right? It's a common agenda. All right? Now, that was an issue that we really stumbled on. It wasn't ours. It wasn't even in our community. But that's the kind of thing that when you come together and you discover the capacity within you and you come together and develop a common issue, you know down the road if this is what has to happen, this is what should happen, if we have enough willing folks to do it, then we can create the other things in between to make sure that it is sustainable. So we got sustainable jobs because of that.